Hey, welcome everyone to the From the Shadows podcast. I am your host, Shane Grove. And before we get started with this episode, I just want to remind everybody that if you want to find us on Facebook, we're at From the Shadows podcast, and After the Shadows on Facebook. That's our forum page where a lot of people leave comments and share stuff or whatever. Then you can find me on Instagram at Shane Grove Author. You can find us at From the Shadows Podcast on Instagram, or you can do it the old-fashioned way. Go to the website, hit the contact button. You can send me an email. I love getting emails, especially when people want to share experiences and actually come on the show. Some people don't want to come on the show, but I love to hear those experiences as well. So if you want to get a hold of us, those are all good ways. Either me or Nita, our social media queen, is patrolling the social media airwaves, and we'll make sure that I try to stay on top of everything, even though I can't. But pretend I didn't say that. Anyway, we want to welcome to the show a fellow Buckeye. We always love to have fellow Buckeyes on the show. Not that they're better than everybody else, but they're better than everybody else. Anyway, Scott from rather than say the suburb that you're from, because many people know, from Columbus, from the capital city, home of the number 4 ranked at this time Ohio State Buckeyes. Scott, welcome to the From the Shadows podcast.
Hey, thanks, Shane. Glad to be here. Yeah. Just on the west side there, Hilliard.
Just on the west side. All right. From Hilliard. He's representing Hilliard for all those who are in the know. And I hope that when this episode does come out in a couple weeks, the Buckeyes might be ranked 3rd or 2nd, maybe even 1st, because we know Michigan does not deserve to be above us, despite.
Got to get past Penn State, and then it'll start looking up.
So Scott, you have a couple. Now I know you when we first talked a couple times, and you kind of downplayed some of your experiences. Okay, and I know that your wife didn't help any. She's a big doubter, but that's because I told you I believe that somewhere deep down inside, she's had an experience or two herself, and she's trying to just tell herself that nothing crazy could ever possibly really happen. So, so despite her doubt, I want you to share with our listeners the couple of experiences that you have had that, in retrospect, may seem like they were something more than what they did at the time.
Yeah. So the first one, well, thanks for having me. Appreciate it. I've been a listener for a long time and love the show. So it's good to be talking to you. So first one, probably back in 2011. It was my 40th birthday. Wanted to keep it kind of low key. So my wife, and at the time, my daughter was only about a month and a half. And so we decided to go to Hocking Hills. Just get a cabin over in Old Man's Cave area and just kind of, have it low key. So we went there and honestly, like I said before on the phone call, it wasn't anything like jump out at you or anything, but didn't think much of it at the time. So we got there, everything was normal. I'd say probably that first evening that we were there, just had this rancid smell. It was kind of like, it wasn't like what some people describe in encounters like skunk / death / all that. It was just really kind of sewage, really. I think at the time, maybe I thought, there was probably a septic tank or something like that. But, a little while later, it wasn't there. That smell was gone. Certainly the next day when we went out to the car to get things or just went out on a hike or something, that smell wasn't around. And then it wasn't really till the next evening that smell came back. And again, I just didn't really think of it other than just kind of complaining to my wife, like, God, it smells nasty out there and all that. So we I decided to go out on those places, those cabins. They're kind of out secluded if you haven't been there before. And most of them have hot tubs out there on a deck or a porch. Ours had a big front porch that had a hot tub on there. And I was going to go out there one evening just to go sit in the hot tub, chill out. And again, I smelled that smell, and I actually started hearing things. I mean, it was dark. I couldn't really see anything. There weren't really many lights or floodlights or anything like that. I just started hearing what I thought was walking in the woods, kind of near the cabin. I might have played it off as a deer, or I don't know. I could have thought it was a bear or something. It did seem a little bit bigger than a deer. I've heard deer walking. I've heard other animals walking in the woods. I just was hearing branches snapping. It was fall, so you could hear leaves and things like that. I pretty much just bagged the idea going in the hot tub. I just went back inside, and that was it. And never really, and then the next day that smell wasn't around, and just never really thought much of it actually since then. It really wasn't until probably started listening to your show. And am I allowed to mention other podcasts? Or
oh, of course, yeah, of course. Yeah,
I listened to Wes over on Sasquatch Chronicles as well.
Who's that?
And,
Who's that? Who's what? Who's that? I don't know.
Nobody. No.
In fact, I encourage people to go listen to Wes.
Yeah,
because
you do. I hear you talking about him.
Yeah, he's look, when it comes to the Bigfoot stuff, he's obviously the king. Okay, he has the best episodes, the best guests.
Yeah.
I mean, we have great guests, but I mean, it's all Bigfoot all the time. So if you want to really hear like the broad spectrum of experiences that people have, that's the place to really go and, compare us and Bigfoot and Beyond and the confessionals and everybody else that does paranormal stuff with those stories. I mean, that's the best database, hands down, of Bigfoot stories for sure.
Yeah, it's a good one. That's actually what got me thinking about this instance back in 2011, because I've heard him say on a couple podcasts how he finds it fascinating that some people may have an experience at the time, they don't think anything of it, but then later on when they hear other people's experiences, you kind of go back and start thinking about what you went through. And that coupled with listening to one of your episodes, it was the one with Debbie, her family in Hocking Hills.
Mm-hmm.
It was when she mentioned that smell. That's when I really start thinking like, oh my gosh, I was in the same place. I don't know that I was in the same cabin or area really, but it was a Hocking Hills area. So that's what really got me thinking like, man, what was that? Was it not a septic tank? Who knows what it was? It just got me thinking. I just thought it was strange. That's all. So
the thing that hits me like with the smell part is number one, how bad is a smell to remember it a decade later? I mean, and I've had those experiences with different types, different things over, you remember a taste or something like that. It stays with you. And,
right.
But when the smell comes and goes, like a septic tank just doesn't all of a sudden smell good for a couple hours. You know what I'm saying? Like something smells bad. It smells bad until it is either removed or something is done to cover it up. And then, so to me, like, and it was the same, Debbie said the same thing. They smelled it and then it went away. And it was kind of like, I think when they went to the hot tub too, I think that if I remember right, so, and it always freaks me out when people, when you're in a place like that and you get in the hot tub, everything else, like you said, it's dark, but you're just kind of lit up in that hot tub, like a piece of, like a popcorn chicken getting in the deep fryer. Like here I am,
Right.
So did you, since we've already established that your wife is a naysayer, at the time, did you but at the time you didn't think Bigfoot. You were just like, this is, but you did think somebody was out there in the woods, though, maybe.
I did think something was out in the woods. Didn't know what it was. Bigfoot never even crossed my mind at the time. I wasn't listening to any podcasts, or I don't even know if podcasts were around in 2011. But certainly, if I thought anything was Bigfoot, that was a Pacific Northwest problem. It wasn't anything in Ohio. So yeah, that thought didn't even cross my mind. I think I might have thought maybe a bear, but I don't even know if there's many. And there's some black bear nowadays in Ohio, but you don't hear much about it in Hocking Hills.
Well, let's be honest. Even just Bigfoot's one thing. But the prospect of a bear just being beyond where you can see, lurking around, and like I said, looking at you in the hot tub like a piece of popcorn chicken. That doesn't make it any better. That doesn't make it any better, to me. That's still something that can come up and, if it wanted to, not saying that it would, but if it wanted to, it probably could inflict some pain. For sure.
I definitely didn't think it was hikers. It was nighttime. I guess some people may hike at night, but there were no hiking trails by the cabin. I mean, that's all kind of further away. You got to drive to it. So this is all just kind of private property and just a place to chill out. So
you just bagged the whole idea, go back inside, and now were there any other, I don't know how much longer you were there. Did you smell anything else? Did you hear anything else, or was that kind of the end of it?
No, that was it. We were only there, I think, for 2 nights. Nothing really else. We kind of just chilled out in the cabin for the most part. Our daughter was a month and a half old, so it was just really just time to kind of just chill out, watch movies, have a fire, and just hang out, relax.
Sounds fun. I'm ready to go right now. Let's get.
I mean, certainly, if it happened nowadays, I would have been in a window looking and all that thinking. But at the time, never thought anything like Bigfoot would be around Ohio. So it didn't even cross my mind to kind of check it out.
Yeah, and I've heard there's stories about, if somebody was walking around at night and whatever, and even if it's not Bigfoot or a bear, if it was a person, that in itself is also kind of creepy. To think that somebody's like out there in the woods and can see you and you can't see them, right. And you don't have any idea of what their intentions are. So I think probably you made the right decision to go back in for sure, no matter what it was. I think there's 3 possibilities, and all 3 of them I don't really care for. You know what I'm saying? So right. then what's the next incident that happened that made you rethink?
So the next one was around 2018. Friend of mine, my old neighbor, he's since moved, but we were going hunting down in the Chillicothe area. Actually, just past Chillicothe. I think it's like Route 35 that goes down through there. But anyways, it was a little bit south of Chillicothe. And he must have hooked up with somebody who has land. It's these two brothers. One of them has a house kind of out into the woods, and then another one a little bit further down. So basically, he had a tree stand where he was at. He was hunting in one brother's property, and then he dropped me off over to the other brother's property where I was in a deer blind. So he dropped me off really early. It was gun season at the time, so it was towards later November 2018, and I wanted to get there early. So and get there while it's still dark, kind of settle down a little bit after I kind of rustle up the woods and, get set up. So I just wanted to be quiet for a little while. So I'm guessing it was around 5:30-ish or something in the morning before sunrise. And I was just sitting there waiting for it to get light, just checking my phone, doing whatever, just being quiet. And Next thing I know, I hear like, I was hearing things, like maybe squirrels and things like that, just a little bit of movement. And it's then after about a half hour or so sitting in the blind, maybe 45 minutes, it was I heard to me what sounded like a couple footsteps, actual two, maybe three steps that did not sound like a squirrel anymore. I was thinking could be maybe a coyote. I don't know. Those were around Ohio and, certainly or traveled around at that time. So I just heard a couple. It was like literally right outside the blind. I mean, it sounded like it was right outside of it. Anyways, the footsteps stopped and I heard an audible sniffing, like literally right probably 6 inches from my face because I was right up against the back wall of the blind, and I hear the two large sniffs. I froze. I got kind of freaked out a little bit, just kind of froze up. Wasn't sure what that was, thinking maybe coyote, whatever. Didn't hear anything after that. Probably waited maybe a minute or something like that. Tried to peek out one of the windows of the rear of the blind. I didn't have those open because I was actually planning on hunting the opposite direction because on the backside it was pretty full of trees and brush, so I wasn't going to hunt that way. But I looked out, didn't see anything. Actually opened up the door of the blind, peeked out, actually stuck my head out. Nothing there. But what was strange is I never heard anything go away. I heard those steps out there. I heard the sniffs, didn't hear anything after that. I looked out and there was nothing there. So it was just completely strange to me. I have no idea what that was. That was pretty much it.
So I'm not a hunter. I've spent a bunch of time out in the woods hunting, especially in the middle of the night or before the sun's up. So let me ask you this. So say if it was a deer or if it was a coyote that came up and they sniffed and realized that there was a human there. Now, would they turn and softly walk away so that you couldn't hear them, or would they scamper away and like, okay, I got to get out of here? And would a coyote even do? Would it even scare a coyote?
I don't know. So Shane, I'm not a huge hunter either. I go out like when I can. I don't go on public land just because it's crowded. If I get an opportunity to go on private land with somebody, I will. I don't know what the behaviors are. I'd be lying if I said I knew what all the behaviors were of coyotes and even deer. But I would think that if it came up and knew there was a human in there, it'd probably run away. But even if it went away quietly, I think I would hear it. It was completely dark, and the only sense I really had at that point was my sense of hearing, and I didn't hear a thing.
Well, I'm curious. So I'm curious. So if there's hunters and I know there's hunters that listen and watch, I'd love to know if they've had a similar experience, and if they've been out there and a deer or a coyote or something like that has walked up on them inadvertently, got a whiff of them, and how they reacted. I would love to hear that, because this had to have happened to other people, just to see if what that baseline is for the action of those animals. Because I gotta be honest, when you told me that, I mean, the only animal that I ever hear of being there 1 second and then being not there, seemingly, is when people talk about Bigfoot. I mean, they talk about it time and time again. It was there, then it was not there. I had no idea where it went. I didn't hear it walk away. I've heard stories from a lot, you're self-proclaimed not that experienced out in the woods. I've heard from people way more experienced than the average person say they were snuck up on never hurt. It's the kind of being or creature that practices stealth-like behavior when it needs to, And so when you told me that, I'm like, wow, okay. I mean, that's a leap, because we don't really know. We didn't see anything, but you do know what you heard coming up, and you did hear a couple sniffs, and which, oh man, that is every horror movie that I've ever thought about writing. It has a scene in it where something sniffs or breathes or something, and you can't. I mean, I don't know what it was, but I'm going to tell you that if I was in that blind and something came up and sniffed after the second sniffed, it would smell something that it didn't the first sniff. Because I geez, ow. It just sounds creepy.
Yeah, I was sitting there just giving it so much thought. And I think what I ended up kind of thinking it might have been, and I don't know. First off, I thought maybe, okay, it was a squirrel. And, just it being dark, it sounded cold. It's louder than what it would normally sound like. And I thought maybe I think I wrote it off as okay, there was a squirrel right by my blind and it shook its tail and rubbed up against the blind. And that was the sniffing sound. I don't know. That's what I talked myself into, at least. And just kind of left it at that.
And I think, since we've already talked about Wes, I will throw out a Wes quote. Sometimes when you try to rationalize what it may be, it sounds just easier to say, it was a Bigfoot that walked up and sniffed. And then because, I mean, hey, look, and it may have been a squirrel that did that. I don't know, but that would be crazy to me. That a squirrel would do that. But I hear squirrel, I think I even told you that when you were telling me this, I walk all day long around through trees and stuff, and I hear squirrels. I've never heard a squirrel sniff me as I walked by. I can tell you that. So this is one where I'd love to hear some feedback from some people that are more experienced out in the woods, hunters, and just hear about some of the behaviors of some animals and see if it matches anything that happened, because I'm at a loss for that. Like I said, that would be enough for me to never go hunting again, no matter if it was a squirrel or not. That's just a little creepy to me.
Yeah. And like I said, that was in 2018. And even at that point, I wasn't listening to podcasts, and Bigfoot didn't cross my mind. If it had, then I'd be with you. That second sniff would have smelled something a little bit different than the first one.
Well, so then listening to other people's stories must have triggered something maybe this could.
Yeah.
Because those are two definite instances where stuff is stuck with you, that maybe you weren't satisfied with what you thought you were told yourself happened at the time. Obviously, I don't think you were satisfied with that.
Yeah, well, maybe. At the time, I never really gave it much thought anymore, and it just wasn't until I was hearing other encounters where I was like, well, yeah, I had something very similar to that happen, but I never saw anything. So I hesitate to say I had a Bigfoot experience. To be honest, it was just a weird experience that I can't explain, and yeah, that's why we're talking.
So did you, and I can't remember if I asked, did you say anything to the guy that you went out there with about that?
Yeah, it was later on in the evening. He picked me up, and I think I just said I got spooked in the blind. I mean, nothing major, because I didn't think much of it. I just said something was outside my blind. I heard a sniff, and that was about it. He was like, could have been a coyote. Yeah, we didn't talk much about it, to be honest.
Which is, and you want to talk about the two of the most active spots in Ohio. It's down around Coshocton and all those places. And then both places that, where you're at, those are two of the most active places in Ohio, for sure. I mean,
Yeah.
Good grief. And so when you, and I hate to ask you this because I know this is probably the worst memory out of all this. So when you brought this up to your wife, the one that's supposed to support you through everything, she was not receptive of this possibly being attributed to Bigfoot in any way, shape, or form.
Oh, no, I don't think I even told her that it could have been attributed to that. It was just, I told her that I was spooked, and that was about it. She was like, oh my God, I'd never do that, and all that. So she's like, that's what you get for going out in the woods at night. So,
but she's not a believer in,
she's not wired that way. She's a CPA, lover, and, but yeah, she's just not wired that way. She's is very much a realist and believes what you see. So.
Oh boy. So like I said, I think she's hiding something, but that's between you guys. That's between
I'll bring it up one of these days.
So, as we were talking about these, we kind of dug into something else, that you had some other paranormal, or maybe you think they were paranormal experiences from actually going on some ghost hunts. Yeah. So I kind of wanted to see if you'd share those stories, seeing as it's October and we're all about ghost stories here at the podcast in October.
Yeah, absolutely. So first one, both of them happened in Mansfield. One of them was at the Ohio State Reformatory. So I went to a Hilliard Rotary meeting and one afternoon, and the company, or a little organization called the Ghosts of Ohio, James Willis was speaking at that Rotary lunch, and I got into the conversation because at the time I enjoyed watching ghost hunters and those kinds of shows, paranormal shows. So I was able to join them. He invited me on a ghost hunt at the Ohio State Reformatory. Again, this is back around 2011. I don't know what month it was or date or anything. I want to say September-ish. I could be wrong, but so it was a closed session. So it wasn't like open to the public where there were like 100 people there or whatever. There was probably about maybe 30, 35 of us there. We were divided up into groups of 5, maybe 6 people, and just kind of went to the different areas of the prison. If you haven't been there before, it's awesome. Have you been there?
I've spent so much time there. It's not even, I've filmed 2 movies, a music video, and Ghost Brothers. I had a part in a Ghost Brothers episode. I've been there so many times. I have nothing. I was strapped inside the electric chair for the Ghost Brothers episode. And it's actually the electric chair from Columbus, I think from the one at the that they actually electrocute they have up there, and it was
like old
just
Sparky or something like that.
Yeah. They strapped me into it. They strapped me into it and filmed me like I had to act like I was getting electrocuted, and I'm like, and it was for the Ghost Brothers, for an episode of fun. And I'm like, what? I go, I know all the stories you guys are doing in the show. What's the electric chair? And they go, hey, listen, one other time we're going to have a chance to film somebody getting electrocuted. We got to do this. So okay, whatever. But I thought, because I've never experienced anything crazy there. I know tons of people that have. And after spending all that time there, I'm just like, I haven't never. And I thought, if I'm strapped into the electric chair where people have actually got put to death, then maybe I'm just not a ghost.
Yeah, maybe. Exactly.
Don't know.
Yeah. So, so we were over there. So they did divide it up into groups of 5 or 6 people, and we all just kind of went in different spots of the prison at different times and spent about an hour or so. So we were there all night long till probably about 5:30 in the morning. So they divided us up, going like some would go on the west cell block, east cell block. Then there's the mansion area, the chapel, and solitary confinement are the ones that come to mind. So we went through, and it was pretty much an uneventful night. We did recordings, trying to get EVPs, ask questions, things like that. Never really heard anything, after listening back to it. Kind of towards the end of the night, I was on the east cell block, and we all kind of split up. And I was just kind of walking over, just checking out those cells. For people who haven't been there before, they're stacked on top of each other. I think that east cell block might be 6 levels of cells, 5 or 6.
It was the highest cell block of its kind, or freestanding. It was at least 6 for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was spooky. I think that I could be wrong. I could be mixed up between east and west. I think the east was the older one, and the west seemed a little bit more plush, so to speak, when it comes to cells, I guess. But or more modern maybe. But
you mean it had a toilet seat? Had a toilet seat on the one side, not the other, because that's about as plush as it gets.
Yeah, it's definitely a spooky place. I mean, with all the paint chipping off the bars and everything, it's crazy there. But so I was just walking around, and again, the whole night, even in solitary confinement, I didn't really experience anything. And I was just sitting there checking out the cells, and over on the east cell block, and I all of a sudden started to get like a very chilling feeling. I felt cold, felt like the temperature actually dropped a little bit, but mostly I just felt spooked out. Don't know why. I just all of a sudden just kind of felt spooked out. So I decided to walk away and just head back over to where everybody kind of congregates, kind of, I don't know what it's called, but kind of in the middle somewhere. We had like a room with food and drinks and things like that. So I decided just to start walking around and go check something else out. And as I was turning a corner, I literally just all of a sudden felt a tug on my sleeve, just one quick tug. On my left sleeve, I just turned around thinking somebody literally kind of like, hey, just tugged my shirt real quick, wait up. And there was nothing there. And I just kind of spooked me out a little bit. For a second there, I thought, because those cell blocks have birds flying through there, and thought maybe a bird flew into my arm, but I would have heard a bird flapping its wings and hitting me. It wouldn't have been a tug. It would have hit my arm, but that's really all it was. I felt a tug on my shirt. There was nothing there that I was walking anywhere near to snag my shirt on or anything like that. So yeah, that was it. It was just a quick tug on my shirt, and I got out of there and just kind of went to go talk to people. That's about it.
Well, you would not be the first person who got tugged, or there was eyewitnesses, that were on the show, that Ghost Brothers show, of a girl who was giving a tour and standing in front of the cell. I believe it was a cell, and I know the history. I don't know the real specifics, but there was a gentleman who I believe he was getting ready to get paroled, and he did not want to leave, and he covered himself up in bed sheets and mattresses and burned himself alive, like killed himself back in the 50s, 40s, or whatever. And his cell is super active, supposedly, and I think it's on the east side. And the one story that they were there to kind of replay for the show was the tour guide kind of stopped in front of the cell, and there was people there watched her get her hair from something was grabbing her hair from inside the cell and drug her into the cell. And it was,
oh my God,
like, what the heck? And you hear that, and it's just, so you're lucky that maybe something just tugged you on the sleeve. But the more, I
Yeah.
mean, the more I'm there and the more I hear stories, there's a lot of death. There's a lot of death that was not really publicized there. There was a huge scaffolding accident where over a dozen, I believe, inmates died. They had scaffolding set up on the west side, and the scaffolding fell, and there was people hanging on for life. But the problem was, because it was such a maximum high security prison, the emergency vehicles coming in could only come in one at a time, and then had, and it was you couldn't get there fast.
Right.
And people ended up dying. And I had never heard that for years and years and years. But the last couple of times we were there, we heard that story, and it's like, okay, so there's some people that died here tragically who were already here, probably under very bad circumstances,
Yeah.
and you can imagine the bad energy in that place from all those angry people. And then to put death on top of it would be, so that would be more than I would ever want to experience this, to tell you.
Yeah, it was interesting. Yeah, I'd be curious. I'm gonna have to look up that story about the guy that burned himself, because what I didn't mention, it didn't come from a cell, but I was up when I started getting the chills and everything. That's when I was on the second level on the east side, going by the cells, and then wasn't until I came back and went down the stairs and kind of turned the corners where I felt that tug, and there was really nothing to my left.
Yeah, that is a story that is well known, and obviously the people who are well versed in the history of the prison would know the guy's name and know what cell. I think it's even I think there's even a marker that marks the cell, but but that to me, yeah. And down in Solitary, a lady, a ghost hunter group from Marion, she, Mandy with the Ghost Sisters, she captured a crazy video that they show on the Ghost Brothers show. And she wasn't there in a ghost hunting capacity. She was there just touring the place.
Yikes.
And took the video looking behind her, and there's a figure that walks down the hall and into the cell where a guard was supposedly murdered by an inmate down there. And
wow.
So there's all kinds of crazy stuff. Like I said, we filmed part of a movie where we were down there in that Solitary for, but if you got a bunch of people and you got a bunch of cameras and sound equipment, it's probably not, they're not coming out and hanging out. You know what I'm saying? It's the same as those guys going out in the forest looking for Bigfoot, and there's 10 of them, with cameras and boom mics, and like Bigfoot's going to be like, check you guys later. I'll just sit over here. I'm not,
Yeah, they can hide from supposedly tree cameras, then I think they can hide from camera crews.
Exactly. So where was your other ghostly experience then down in Mansfield?
Yeah, so the other one was a place called the BisMan building. I went with the same group, the Ghosts of Ohio. I can't remember, probably about 30 of us. It was around the same time. It was both in the same year. I went to both places, and which was also kind of a cool place, that BisMan building. It was like I think about a 5-story, used to be like an old grocer warehouse. And the front of it, the front facade, was actually filmed part of Shawshank. It was that halfway house hotel.
Yep.
I forget what it was called, but but it was in that movie. And so we were there, and it was pretty uneventful night for the most part too. We just kind of went around. It was a spooky place, especially the basement. Thought maybe we saw shadows for a little while down in the basement, but we kind of thought it was just kind of cars going by, casting shadows through the windows. So didn't think much of that. So Actually, the whole evening was pretty much uneventful. It wasn't until I got home that next morning and I was trying to sleep, and I was just listening to the audio, just laying in bed listening to the audio clips, and there was one clip, and I still got to go try to find it. I know I have it. It's still on the audio recorder. It's just batteries are dead. I got to throw some more in there and look for it. I'll do that and send it to you and see what your take is on what that sound is. But I was just laying in bed listening, and so we were, like, if I paint the picture, we were on, I want to say like the second or third floor. We were hanging out by the elevator, and I don't remember the exact story of what happened in that elevator, but supposedly someone had died on that elevator. It was like a freight elevator, or got decapitated, or something like that. I don't know that that story I heard could have been passed down, and who knows. But we were just asking questions, and none of us were whispering, because when you're doing that, I'm not a professional ghost hunter at the least bit. But, I know enough that you don't whisper. You don't want to get any voices misconstrued or anything like that. So we were just talking normal. And anyways, fast forward, I'm listening to it in my bed, and I could hear footsteps, but I know it's us. We're walking away from the elevator at that time to go to another spot. And throughout that little clip, I'm hearing like what sounds like a little kid kind of whispering, but I couldn't make out anything that it was saying. You just kind of hear it whispering. And it wasn't until we were walking away, I heard an audible whisper that I thought was a little boy that whispered, "Wrong way." Like the words "wrong way." I don't know if that whisper came through or not on this audio, but
yeah, it did. It came through.
The words "wrong way." And it sat me up in my bed. I'm rewinding it, listening to it again and again and again, and I'm hearing nothing but a little kid whispering the words "wrong way." Of course, I have my wife take a listen, and it's shoe shuffling. That's what her explanation. She's like, "That's a shoe shuffling." So I don't know. I can't unhear it. It's one of those things where I just heard it, and I'm like, I can't unhear it. It to me, it was a little kid whispering the words "wrong way," and it was spooky. And I even had my cousin listen to it, because my younger cousin, she went on that same trip with me, and she heard the same thing I did. She got creeped out, and yeah, it was weird. It was weird.
Did anybody else in that group capture anything?
I don't know. It's like, so I wasn't really part of the the aftermath of it and doing, listening to audio with the team or anything. I have to take a look. So James Willis was the head of Ghosts of Ohio, and I know that visit to the BisMan building was a chapter in a book that he wrote. I'll dig up that book and
okay.
Let you know the title of it. So, but that night was in a book of his. So I'll get that title to you.
It'd be interested to see if anybody else or even them had any kind of collaborating evidence, that was similar. So did anybody, back to the prison, did anybody else in the group have any experiences in the prison that you knew of that night?
Yeah, somebody, I don't remember exactly what was reported. It was a while ago, but somebody had an experience in a solitary confinement area. She was talking about something spooky, whether it was something touched her or if she just heard something. Nothing like EVPs or anything like that, because she was sharing her experience that same night, and she wouldn't have listened to it by then. But it was kind of like a tug or something like that, or something touched her, like maybe touched her hair. I don't remember exactly, but someone did have an experience.
So you won the first trip. Did you just decide then, man, this is pretty cool, I want to go on the second one then?
Yeah, I asked if he had anything else going on, and so he was able to let me go on that one as well, and haven't been on any since. But yeah, that was That's why we
Well,
were still, my wife was pregnant at the time, so I was able to get away. And then once we had the child, for no more, wasn't able to do that anymore.
but I mean, what else do you want? We think you got tugged on, which is physical contact, and then you captured an EVP. Like, other than seeing something, like, there's not much left to do when it comes to ghost hunting as far as having an experience,
Yeah, we'll see. I know I'm going on a hunting trip down in Alabama in December. I don't know if there's many reports down in Alabama, but I'm going to keep my eyes peeled. That's for sure.
There's Georgia, Alabama, like all that area down there is. We just keep getting more and more people reaching out that have experiences, and especially I think anywhere that there's big parcels of land that are just out in the middle of nowhere that are good habitat, there's a good chance that there's going to be something out there. Doesn't mean there is, but there's always a chance for sure. So, but number one, I really wish we could get your wife on board. So you got to somehow bring it up and say, okay, what experience did you? I'm staking. I don't even have a reputation to stake, but I am thinking that she's either had an experience or grew up hearing about stuff in her family and just it was like, this didn't happen. I think that's it.
When you say it that way, there might be something that, is just kind of she's suppressing and doesn't want to talk about it. Who knows?
Oh, well, Scott, I'm glad that you agreed to come on and share this, because I think these are all, I mean, the ghost stuff, I have no doubt, because those are two notoriously very active places. And I mean, the BisMan building, I think ghost hunters went to the BisMan building too when they did. And I believe that the story is that one of the employees at the BisMan company may have died in the elevator shaft. And I don't know that he got beheaded or whatever, but I think that's what people think, is, and I know some of the stuff people have heard up there turns out to be maybe an animal or something running around, but it's definitely not, wrong way is not, you know what I'm saying? That's not an animal. That's not.
I swear that's what I heard.
Well, yeah, if you're able to get that, I'll send it to me. We'll definitely put it up and let everybody take a listen and see what everybody else hears. And I guarantee you, it's not going to be shoe shuffling. Probably, I bet it's not going to be shoe shuffling.
Who knows?
Well, Scott, I thanks again for coming on and sharing your experiences. And if something happens down there hunting in Alabama, we definitely want to hear about it.
You'll be the first call I make. Yeah. Appreciate you having me. I know I kind of downplayed this stuff because I never saw anything. No, didn't see any Bigfoot, but weird stories for sure. And glad you talked me into sharing them.
Well, I'm good at twisting people's arms, but I think what happens is then when you reflect upon those experiences and then you're willing to share them with an open mind, that other people then can also have a more open mind towards experiences that they've had where there may not be a sighting, but there may be circumstantial events that, you don't know. You don't know for sure. I mean, there is a giant squirrel out there sniffing around. But I have to tell you, I think if there's a giant squirrel out there, somebody would have shot it by now.
I don't think so. Yeah, it's not that elusive.
No. Well, Scott, thank you so much. And, be careful out there when you go hunting. And like I said, when your wife finally confesses, we have an open door for her here too.
Sounds good. Hey, thanks for having me, Shane. Appreciate it.
Hey, thanks. Yep. Thank you. Thank you for listening.
Thank you for tuning in to this week's episode of the From the Shadows podcast. Until next time, never shy away from the darkness or what may be lurking in the shadows. We are out. God only knows.